Welcome back to episode 4. We're going to be talking about the CW Nancy Drew season 1. Um, I didn't really have a whole lot happen recently. I mean, I got COVID. We've been preparing for my sister's graduation. That's about it for me. Yeah, we're keeping it short. We got a lot to talk about.
Okay.
But what are your big things?
I'm Lauren.
Oh, well, yeah. I'm Nenya. I'm Gabe. I'm something.
Perfect. Yeah, so have been preparing for the wedding. It's like 26 days now. So my bachelorette party is this weekend. We've been doing, getting my dress finished, and we're doing hair and makeup trials next week. And then so it's my bachelorette this weekend. Next week is my fiance's brother's bachelor party. And then it's 4th of July, and then it's our wedding. So, woo, it's happening so fast.
Wow.
It's so crazy.
Wow.
I know. So
It doesn't feel like it's that soon.
I know.
Like June went by really fast.
I mean, we're only halfway through June, but I'm so booked.
Right. And so focused.
Mm-hmm.
Congrats. So excited for you.
Thank you. But yeah, we've got 18 episodes of the CW Nancy Drew season 1 to go through. So
yeah.
We got to get started.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of wrote a lot down from the pilot because a lot happened.
So much happens.
Pilot.
It's not my complaint, but that is my biggest takeaway, is that every single episode, every 5 minutes, there is something important that happens. They do not waste a single minute for fun, frivolity. Everything is like, sorry guys, we have a lot of ground to cover and only 18 episodes to do it. So we're moving, we're shaking. So much is going on.
I actually did enjoy that. I liked that there was constantly so much going on. And I thought they managed pacing really well for how much they were juggling. No. So I don't remember if this is how it starts out, but pretty much the background for everything is in 2000, there's a girl, Lucy Sable. She was crowned Sea Queen, and on the night that she was crowned Sea Queen, she suspiciously fell from a cliff to her death. And then we flash, I think this is the beginning, because then we flash forward, and it's 2018. Nancy has been crowned Sea Queen, and she's in a graveyard with her friends. And they're like, you have to. They're telling her to like put something on the grave, on I think Lucy Sable's grave, to like
a ghost thing. I don't know.
Yeah, a
Just
weird thing.
Pranks.
Yeah, and she sees a ghost, and so when this happened, I was like, this is so Nancy Drew, right? Where you really question, is it supernatural? Is it real? So I love that. And then we get a flash. She is a child, and we see Nancy's parents digging up a chest in the backyard in the middle of the night. You're like, okay, that's kind of sus. And then I think if I remember right, we then go to present day. So Nancy, Bess, George, and Ace all work at the Claw. And while they're at the Claw, at some point... Oh, it's a restaurant. It is a restaurant where it's George's restaurant. I guess a seaside restaurant is probably important. They serve a lot of fish. And Nick shows up. I assume he shows up
Nick /
Nancy.
Ned.
Yeah, Nick / Ned. Sorry. Yes, that's important. He shows up. They get some unexpected visitors banging on the door, and they're all like, yo, we're closed. But George is like, no, let them in. And
suspicious looking men.
Suspicious. Scary. I thought they were like mob bosses or something. I was like, what's going on?
That's why I called Ryan Mob Dude the entire time in my notes, because I could not remember his name. And I was like, he's a mob dude. I don't know.
That's funny. And so key factor is George takes Ryan Hudson's and the group's order. Well, I don't know if she takes the order, but she's taking care of them. Ryan Hudson's wife, Tiffany, is out in the car, and Nancy is the one who brings Tiffany her food. And when she brings her food, Tiffany's like, can I have a glass of wine as well? And so Nancy goes to get a glass of wine for her. Another key point of the scene is Nancy in the beginning sets up her phone at the window facing the parking lot because she wants to record the fireworks, because I think every year her and her dad watch the fireworks. And so when
Mm.
Nancy goes back out with the glass of wine, she finds Tiffany dead on the ground. And as she's kind of checking for a pulse, trying to figure out what's
And there,
going on, go ahead.
nope,
No, you're good.
there was a power outage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh, yes.
all the lights in town, and there's a whole town celebration happening, but all the lights in town go out. And then in a flash of lightning, Nancy sees Tiffany dead on the ground and goes running up to
Oh, yeah.
her body on the ground next to her car.
Yes. No, you're right. Yep. Yeah. And as she's checking, that's right. And then she's checking, George, Bess, Nick, Ace all come out. And right as they are coming out, or pretty much right after they come out, the cops show up. And Nancy's like standing over a dead body, looking pretty sus. Also, I think we should make a fair warning. Spoiler alerts. If you plan to watch this or haven't watched or something, this might not be the episode for you, because we will be talking about everything.
Yeah, go watch the season and then come back.
Then come back.
And then
Exactly.
we're here for you.
Exactly. So we have Chief McGinnis, and he's questioning everybody, trying to figure it out. He looks pissed. He came pissed off at the world, and I was like, I don't know. I just thought he was such a mood.
I wrote down
he brings
asshole cop like 1,200 times for the first like 7 episodes.
Bless his heart. Yeah, so he brings everybody in except for Ace and Ryan Hudson. Ace surprised me. I was like, that's suspicious.
Thank
like,
you.
When you're saying Ace is suspicious, that was kind of weird. Him not bringing Ryan's group in wasn't weird to me, because I was like, they seem like mob boss, like they're above the law. So like that wasn't weird.
That I found that very confusing. I mean, I understand like socially in the group, but at the same time, I was like, I'm sorry, these teens were not the only people to work or who were in the area. They didn't know they were coming.
Right.
So why are we throwing fingers at them, but not Ace? Anyway, dumb.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah. So he brings them to the station, and he's just like, everyone looks suspicious. Like, not only is everyone suspicious because they were there, but suddenly you start hearing all these things, and you're like, oh, so George has an alcoholic mother who's very disorderly and causing havoc, and George is having to pick her mom up from the station often. Bess is a shoplifter, which she unintentionally confesses to, right? The cop doesn't even bring it up. She just like panics and admits to being a shoplifter, right?
So we find all of this because McGinnis is literally pointing fingers at the group and being like,
right,
okay, so we got an alcoholic mom, we have a criminal, and when he says criminal,
because Nick has done hard time.
Yeah, he was talking about Nick's hard time, but Bess just admitted because she cracks under this tiniest amount of pressure. I love Bess so much. We're going to talk about the characters in a lot of depth later. I love Bess so much at all times. But yes, so Nick has done hard time. Yeah. We don't know what that's about.
And then Bess, I think, is like, well, what's Nancy? Like, what's wrong with Nancy? And George is like, she's the one who's been doing the cop's job for so many years or whatever. And you're like, that explains why this man came in pissed. He saw Nancy and he was like, not again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's pointing fingers.
If an 18-year-old girl is able, or boy, fine, whatever. If an 18-year-old child is able to do a better job than you in your department, I think that's like a concern for you in your department. Don't be mad at the child. Be mad at your detectives who clearly are not doing their job.
Yeah, I don't think he needs to be mad at her. But Nancy also has the advantages Privilege isn't the right word. I don't know what the right word is, but she doesn't necessarily have to follow things by the law. Like
Mm.
as much as it's good
Mm-hmm.
and bad, but like the cops and the detectives are kind of
She breaks
like
into
they have
any house she finds, any house she wanders
exactly,
by. She's like, that looks suspicious. I should probably go check it out. So she's
exactly
willing to commit crimes to solve crimes.
right. Which that's this whole other thing. But the cops essentially like they kind of have to play by the book, right? Because they want to prosecute. They would want to prosecute if a crime is done, and they have to be careful because they don't want to make evidence inadmissible and all of that. So she does have that leg up against them, I would say. But yes, yeah. And there's that one cop where you're like, the golden retriever cop. I would
Mm-hmm.
call him that. You know who I'm talking about? Who Nancy's
Mm-hmm.
always like talking. Anyways, bless his heart. So yeah, Nancy leaves. She pulls out the lawyer card, kind of, and she's like, "Am I being charged with anything?" And they're like, "No." Oh, right. Oh, this is another keynote. I didn't write this down. So one of the cops, Karen, one of the detectives, Karen. Karen was a close friend of Nancy's mom, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole bunch of tension there, but that we'll come back to that. So she's like trying to, sugar, not sugar Nancy. I don't know. She's the one who's trying to get information on Nancy. Nancy's like, I didn't do anything. I'm leaving. I'm out. She gets home. She checks her phone and remembers, oh yeah, I recorded the fireworks. I might have gotten, a hint of what happened to Tiffany in her final moments, and it's creepy. I'll give it that. That was creepy. I was like, that's suspicious.
Mm-hmm. We were talking
Yeah.
earlier about how the ghost, because we see a ghost behind Tiffany's body in the recording.
Yeah.
And the ghost reminds us a lot of kind of the lunging ghost figure that happens in Midnight in Salem, the Nancy Drew video game, which came out at the same time as this show, which we think is just interesting.
Right.
So literally all of this happens in like the first 20 minutes.
Oh, I know, right? That was like 15.
Yeah, this
That was
happens
really fast.
so fast. And so any other show, this would be the entire episode. Like
Yeah.
Nancy would see her phone, realize she caught a video of the ghost, and be looking off into the distance, being like, "Oh my gosh!" And then it would cut, and then the next
Right. And
episode would
end.
start from there. Not
Yep.
this show. No, no, no.
Yeah, that doesn't even scratch the surface.
Now the
So then,
detective work starts.
right. And I remember that too. I was like, man, it must be over. And it feels like a long time. Like, not in a bad way, but when that all happens, it felt like you had watched a whole episode. And me and my dad were like, well, dang, now we gotta start the next one. But then it kept going. It just kept going. So Nancy goes to the claw. She shows everyone, she shows them the recording. Bess and Ace are like, that's a ghost. A ghost killed Tiffany. Nancy's like, what do you mean? George is like, peace, bitches. Anyway. And so they're like, okay, we need to figure out what to do to help. Do we give the phone? Like, how do we clear our names? And so they start doing some brainstorming and talking, and I think some drama happens then, but it wasn't really important, so I kind of was like, whatever. And Nancy had given up detective work, and then she's like, you know what, I'm just gonna go break into
After her
Ryan
mom
Hudson's
died,
house.
she stopped
Yes.
doing detective
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna talk about that more when we talked about the characters, but yes, that's why she stopped. And so yeah, she was like, I'm just gonna go break into Ryan Hudson's house. Seems legit.
He's a mob dude.
She
This
does
will be
find.
fine.
All right. Like what? She finds a necklace of Tiffany's in like a secret compartment. She finds a necklace and a note. And as she finds it, there was like a silent security alarm that was tripped, and security shows up, and you're like, "There's no way she's getting out of this one."
Mm-hmm.
But she does. Debatably, Ned saves her. Ned, kind of maybe he helps. And so they end up back at the claw, because Nancy's like, well, George is gonna know what this is, because it's sea related, and George comes from like a sea family, I guess you could say. I don't know what you want to call fishing family.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out the necklace is a mariner's charm, which means it has a secret compartment. And in the secret compartment, they find a seahorse that I think is like one of the things that's on the Sea Queen crown, which is why they're like, oh my gosh. And
Oh
then,
yeah.
was there an address in it? No, there's not an address.
Uh,
Was there an address? Is that how they get to the Lilac Hotel or
yes, there's
something?
an address, or there's the name of a medium or something,
That,
right?
yes, that might be what it is. There's something. They get something that leads. Yes, it is. It must be the name of the medium or something. Yeah, and they
And they're
figure
like,
out.
"Oh, we know where that person is." Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so then I literally wrote some drama ensues. Drama. I think it's drama. It's like drama between Ned and Nancy, Nick and Nancy, and whatever. And it basically Carson's like, Nancy, you need to stay away from Nick. He's trouble. Nancy's like, no, sir. And somehow she's like, oh, you must have been Nick's lawyer. And so when her dad leaves, she goes up, breaks into his filing cabinet to dig out Nick's file, and realizes that Nick was convicted of manslaughter after the testimony of a key witness who so happened to be Tiffany Hudson.
So that
And
gives
she's
Ned motive
motive.
to
Yeah.
murder, because right up to now we haven't had any motives for murder, but we will have
Yeah,
plenty
for anyone really.
by the time this episode ends.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's just like reeling from this, and like 2 minutes later, Nick rolls up ready to take Nancy's mom's broken down car to try and fix it. Nancy's like, well, I can't
Because he
confront him
works
yet.
in a
I'm just gonna,
garage.
yeah, I'm just gonna act like everything's okay, but like she's being real sus. She's being sus. And so then because of that, this makes her start actually analyzing everyone who was there at the crime scene and what was everybody's motives.
She kind of gets like
Uh,
warmed up to detective work again. Like the first
yeah.
hit, she was just like, ugh, this is not what I'm about. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yep.
And then as soon as she breaks in and starts like digging into everyone's stuff, all of a sudden she just kind of gets a taste for it again, which is fun for her.
Yep. Yes, exactly. And so yeah, so then it cut. I think it pretty much like they do that. It cuts to George has gone to visit Ryan Hudson at his house, and you're like, that's interesting,
And that's where I started writing, what in the Gossip Girl is this?
right?
Of this
She's
teenage
there.
girl going to hook up with Mob Dude, the husband
Yep.
of the murdered woman.
Yeah, and you're like, okay. Does anyone else got motive? Like, just keep rolling them out. We get it's like literally bam, bam, back to back.
There's
This
an
is motives.
Ariana Grande song playing during this montage of
that's right.
George going to Ryan Hudson, and then we see Ace making a video, recording
Yep.
George and Ryan Hudson together and reporting back to a policeman. Right?
Yeah, I think we see that he sent it to Chief McGinnis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
you're like, what? And then it flashes. Yeah.
And then it flashes to Bess, who is holding the missing.
That did Nick first, I thought. I think we end on Bess. I thought it went to Nick.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right. Nick is then working on the mom's car, opens up a compartment, and pulls out a package. And we're like,
yep.
Okay. And then it flashes to Bess, who is...
Wait, but the side note, too, is he also has this face where he looks like, is he going to tell Nancy or is he not going to tell Nancy?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he kind of looks like he knows what it might be and that it was planned.
Oh, yeah. Definitely,
to get it.
It wasn't a surprise that he opened it.
Yep.
He definitely was just like, yep, I know where this is. Anyway, beep, beep, boop. Yeah. And then we see Bess happily looking at the diamond ring that the murdered woman had that was missing when her body was found.
And it's extra suspicious because you get the lie of she's supposed to be staying with her rich aunt, and that's part of the Marvins, but she's not. She's actually living alone in a van. Because it's like super sus. Not only does she have the ring, but she lied about where she's living.
But yeah, so all four, well, yeah, George motive, and then Bess, who stole, and then Nick, who has the package, and then Ace is doing the video. So all of those are happening over this musical montage, which
Yeah.
is so bananas.
And Ace maybe doesn't necessarily have like a motive, but he's definitely suspicious, and it
Mm-hmm.
definitely seems like he could end up with a motive based off of how everything is kind of
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. The point is he's funneling information somewhere, and we
Yep.
don't know why.
Yeah. And right, and then because the cop's a dick, you're like, maybe it's a dirty cop. That was something that went through my mind, is like, is that why he's giving information?
Yeah.
I thought that's where the episode would end, was after that, but then it kept going. I don't remember how she ends up in the, oh no, yeah, the power goes out
Again.
and Nancy's like, WTF, bro? And I'm like, WTF, why is the power out again? The attic door drops open. That scared me. I jumped. I was not expecting that.
So the stairs from the attic just yanked down by themselves in the dark.
Yeah.
And Nancy's like, fabulous, let's go see what's up there, which is insane.
Because why wouldn't you?
I would not. I would leave the house. But, that's, I guess, why I'm not Nancy Drew. So,
well, that's okay. You're sweetie, and that's just as important. Yeah. So she goes up there, and for some reason she's like, I'm gonna peel away the wallpaper.
Part of it was already ripped.
Oh, that's right.
So she sees this scrawled writing behind the wallpaper, and so she just starts ripping the wallpaper away and just reads this whole message, a children's rhyme. And so then a children's little choir starts singing the children's rhyme, which is always so spooky, about dead Lucy.
Yep. Yeah. Yes, the Lucy Sable rhyme. And then I think it pans over to the trunk, doesn't it? And you're like, wait, that's the trunk we saw at the way beginning of the episode that our parents are digging up. And you're like, surely you must open it. Like, we've committed this far. And there's a bloody dress in it. And when she's looking at it I think the camera shot, if I remember right, is she's looking at it. She set down her flashlight, and like, we're looking at her looking down at the trunk, right? And you see Lucy's sable in the back, and you're like,
her ghost. Yeah,
this can't be real, right? This episode rocked me, because I was like, it's so Nancy, and that it's the questioning of the supernatural. But then I was like, they're going so heavy. Surely the supernatural isn't gonna be real, right?
Joke's on you.
The joke really was on me. Like, for so long, I was so convinced. I was like, surely there will end up being a logical explanation, because never has Nancy, I feel like, ever dabbled so far. Not saying paranormal can't be logical, just that usually you're thinking, like, oh, it's like the Scooby-Doo, right? It's never really a monster. A human did it.
Except in the 80s, when they all of a sudden had real monsters. And then went immediately away from that for reasons.
True. But you know what I mean, though.
But
very fair.
So Nancy has now found the bloody dress of the the suspicious death girl, in her parents' attic.
Did she make that connection, though? Like, does she know?
The medium told her when the girls went to the medium that was in the locket.
They meet the medium that day?
Medium, yes.
Oh, okay.
The medium had told them or the medium channeled Dead Lucy. No, she channeled somebody. I think she channeled Dead Lucy, and it said, Lucy. Find my dress or something like that.
You might be right. You can just call her Lucy, right? You don't have to make her remember she's dead every time.
She's called Dead Lucy. That's like the whole thing.
I know, but I feel like it's so sad. Like, every time she hears about herself, it's the reminder that she's dead. Bless her heart. But yes, yeah.
So that is the entire pilot, which is
It was like 3
so
episodes
crazy.
in one. It was
I
wild.
also wanted to highlight that the medium who they go see, who the dead woman's locket or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
we
Tiffany's
we
necklace.
find out from the medium that the dead woman Tiffany was being haunted by Lucy, and
Right.
everyone was just like, "Oh my gosh!" The woman who plays the medium in the pilot is Pamela Sue Martin, who
Hmm.
played Nancy Drew in the 1970s Hardy Boys / Nancy Drew Mysteries series.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
So
I didn't even know that.
yeah,
That is.
she looked familiar, and so I had to go and look her up. But I think that's so much fun because that
It is.
was one of the classic Nancy Drew series, and they brought her back to be in the pilot of this show. I don't think we see her again in the rest of the series or in the
No,
rest of
but
season 1 anyway, but it was really cool that they brought her in for this.
it is. That's an awesome cameo. I wish
Mm-hmm.
I had known that. I had no idea.
Yeah. And we learned so much about the relationship with all of these characters as well in the pilot. Like during the seance, the 3 girls are holding hands with the medium, and Bess and George
Yeah.
are holding hands, and Bess just leans over and she goes, "Do you moisturize?" to George. And it's just so, it's such a good way to show that they're kind of 2 personalities just kind of
Right.
battling out. I have so many notes about this, including Nancy is such a disaster human. I love her. I also was comparing to Scooby Doo. I was saying Nancy's Fred, Bess is Daphne, George is Velma, the long haired boy, because I couldn't remember Ace's name, is Scooby, but then Nick was also Velma. So no one's Shaggy in that case. And then
Would you would you say Scooby is smarter than Shaggy? For some reason, I feel like he is.
sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I could see Ace being Scooby.
He's just such a golden retriever of the group. His
In
little
the
himbo
beginning,
self.
he
Yeah.
is. He really is. It's. I was like, it's so strange when he starts becoming an actual person.
So my entire issue with Ace is that he spends so much of his time just being like bland with no personality. And then as soon as there's something that they're like, "Oh, we don't know how to do this," he's just like, "Oh yeah, I'm actually a tech wizard. Oh yeah, actually I know exactly how to do this. Oh yeah, I'm working." Like he has no personality, and then they need to fix something or do something. It just, so I felt like that was so suspicious, but I think it's actually just a writer's weakness where they're like, "We don't know how to solve this problem, so we're just going to have Ace be able to do it."
I think it makes more sense in later on seasons, though.
Okay.
When you start actually learning more about him,
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes more sense. But I definitely agree. Yeah.
And I think
Like,
they had to give a reason for why they did that. I think it's not in at the beginning because they didn't intend it to happen, and then they were like, "Okay, I guess we have to explain this somehow," and then figured out how to write it in. That's my guess on that.
do we do we know who his dad? We know who his dad is in season 1, right? Ace.
We find out midway through, yeah.
Yeah, his dad's a cop,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like some of the things he learns, some of the things he knows, makes sense, especially because he seemed like I feel like he gets obsessive with things. Not obsessive, but like he seems like one of those persons where when he worries about something, when he's concerned about something, he goes and like learns it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like he learned a lot from his dad, and he worried a lot about his dad and his dad being on the force and going out and stuff. But yeah, I
Right.
could see where you would think he was suspicious. And I
Yeah.
definitely agree. His character had some weakness, especially in the beginning. Like he just did not have depth.
We find out, like, oh, he's working with the cops, and he, had a prior relationship with this person, and he's somewhat connected to this. And then he just doesn't, he's not telling anyone about this. He's just holding so much back and keeping so many secrets. And that, yeah, they
Yeah.
all have secrets, but his secrets are somewhat innocuous. And so I don't know why he's keeping it. Anyway, there's a lot of secrets
I think
that
he
get
just
revealed in this season.
I feel like he's not dumb, but I feel like he just doesn't always he doesn't have common sense. So I
Mm.
don't think he holds the secrets intentionally and that he's like, I'm gonna hold this a secret. I feel like there's a lot of times where things just unintentionally are kept and he's like, oh, I guess maybe I should
Hmm.
share this. And you're like, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
bud.
Ace, this is
Good
kind of
job.
important. Yeah. Because he is like, he is the golden retriever until all of a sudden he's like a German shepherd.
Yeah, and it's, yeah. I just had a lot of questions. I was telling Gabe earlier that pretty much every single episode through there, I was like, Ace is going to be the bad guy. Ace is going to be the murderer. I'm just so convinced that Ace has something to do with it because I don't trust him at all. Because he's not places where he should be. He's lying about different things. He has way too much knowledge about specific events or how to do things and just knows too much for from my understanding
Mm-hmm.
about things. And I'm like, why would he know about this? Like, it's, I don't know. And I
Yeah.
hope they fix that in later or give it, you're saying they give it some sort of explanation, but
I don't know if
yeah.
they give it an explanation. It's more of just like, I guess for me, as I learned more about him, I saw him more as he worked as a character, and then to
Mm,
me, it was more viable. Like, I wasn't like, well, that's
yeah.
strange.
It felt like they forgot
Yeah.
about him until he was needed. I don't know. It's kind of where I saw it. They just kept forgetting he was a character.
Yeah, because he also gets left behind a lot, too,
That's
in the
why I
beginning.
thought it was so suspicious because he was
But, like,
never
he
part
didn't
of the
choose to
group.
stay behind, though. They just kept leaving him behind. They're like,
Because
Ace.
he was a bland, useless personality. So, or that's what I felt he was portraying. And so they were like, oh, we don't actually need him, or like, you can stay in the car or whatever. And then they'd go do something and something bad would happen. And I'd be like, yeah, you left Ace alone. So now he can go around and muck things up for you. Duh. Why is he
That's
always
funny.
getting left behind?
Right.
And then bad things happen where the rest of the group is all together. So who's doing the bad
Mm-hmm.
things? I don't know. The person who knows everything because y'all tell him everything and then never include him in anything. And he has connections to the cops and a variety of other people and is lying about a bajillion things. I don't know. Anyway, so I was firmly convinced it was Ace.
That's funny.
Anyway.
I felt like it would have been too easy in the beginning for it to be any of the five. Like I felt like they
Yeah.
all had to be red herrings
And see, and I
because
thought Ace was just, I thought he was taken out of it so early that I was like, they clearly don't want us to think of him as a suspicious person. I felt like they were trying to like just be like, nope, there's no way he's suspicious. Anyway, and then they add in so many other characters and other pieces and whatever that I was just so convinced it was um, one of the five who actually did do it, and we brought in a whole bunch
right.
of red herrings that were
Yeah.
connected or whatever.
I mean, that's fair. To be fair, in the pilot, you pretty much see the gambit of the cast. I think you meet pretty much every single person who will be important, who will be a part of the story, and who is in the season in the first episode. There might be
I don't think
a
we
couple
meet
people we
Owen. Do we meet Owen?
don't see. No, we don't meet Owen, but like there's like two or three. I don't think we see Owen. I don't remember if we actually see Everett or Celia.
Mm-mm.
But pretty much like you get everyone in that first
Yeah.
pilot. I thought it was probably one of the better pilots I've ever seen. Like I was like you gave us a lot of information and it wasn't in a boring way. Like I didn't feel
Mm-hmm.
like you were just giving me information for the sake of giving it to me.
That music
Like it all
montage
felt, yeah.
was
Wait, what?
crazy. The
Oh
ending
yeah,
one where it reveals
right,
that little piece of each person's lives, I was
right,
like, what? What's happening?
right. It all felt relevant. It didn't feel rushed. Like I felt good. I was excited. Like that hooked me. I was
Mm,
like, this is a really good pilot because I've seen some pretty shoddy pilot episodes that then
yeah.
like the rest of the show's great and you're like, what happened here?
Yeah.
But this, I think they had a strong first episode.
Okay. So this is the major spoilers part.
Yeah, this is the major spoilers part for sure, for sure. I think the first big thing, which was kind of obvious, was that somehow, in some form or fashion, Lucy Sable's death and Tiffany Hudson's death were connected.
18 years apart or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 18 years apart, and that's the big thing. I would say that's the whole overarching arc of season one, and like that's the question and what we solve by the end of it.
And Nancy's the one who basically puts that together. Nancy,
Yeah,
because she sees the ghost and because she's otherwise kind of privy to that, she's the one who really says, no, we have to solve how Lucy died in order to understand why Tiffany died. She 100% was just like, no, these two are linked, and no one else would believe her for the longest
yeah,
time.
yes, and definitely much to the chagrin and frustration of everyone else, being like,
Mm-hmm.
just freaking leave Lucy alone. Like she knew, she was spot on.
Mm-hmm.
And
She
so
was being
then,
haunted, so like, you know,
that's true, that's true. But like, I mean, but so were George and Bess, and
not
like
by
they weren't
Lucy
as
though.
Oh, you're right. I guess that was all Tiffany.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so then I kind of did subsequent points that all led us to the conclusion of why they're connected and how we get there. So the subsequent episode of the pilot, the big takeaway from that was the Hudsons were trying to cover up the autopsy. Something was sus. They were ruling it a natural cause of death. You were like, why? So Nancy, being Nancy, breaks in, gets a vial of Tiffany's blood, and sends it to an old chemist friend. And then through that, later on, eventually, we learn that Tiffany was in fact poisoned.
Mm-hmm.
And another side note, subsequent thing to that, we also eventually learned the vial of poison used to poison her was from police evidence, from a different case.
Also in
Uh,
episode 2, Nancy finds out that George is sleeping with Ryan Hudson. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
I feel like that's more of a character thing than necessarily a point. Like it is a point, but it's more of like I don't know. But yes, that is true. Yes. Um, I think another kind of key thing that this is also like overarching into all of the seasons is Carson becomes Ryan Hudson's lawyer. But the reason why that is so important is you hear all these implications of he used to work with the Hudsons. He was like the Hudsons' dog,
Fixer.
like,
Yeah.
fixer. Yeah. And so that was a big thing, I think, and leads to a bunch of things that I think we'll talk about.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the characters. George's bucket, way in the beginning, when she kicks her bucket over, it turned to blood, and this means she won't live out the year.
Yeah,
And this was like huge foreshadowing. That was like, well, foreshadowing that, like, so many things are happening, and you're like, is George gonna die? Like, what's going on here?
so the bucket thing, a little context for that. The town basically has a little ritual, and this is a fishing town, basically, in where? Maine?
Yeah,
Something like that.
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
And so they have a tradition of putting a bucket of seawater out by your front door on this specific, I don't know if it's a solstice or something like that, some specific night every year. And so it's just a tradition. And so then in the morning, you go out and kick the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And if the bucket has turned red, that means that you're going to die within the year. And it's,
Right.
just kind of a silly tradition, whatever. And most people don't take it too seriously. But yes, but George, this year, her bucket is red.
Yeah. And
And Ace sees her washing it up.
yeah.
I'm going to keep doing this because I have so many notes on everything that is suspicious about Ace and why I'm so angry by the ending.
That's funny. That's funny. Rest in peace, Ace. Yeah. But I feel like George, like, we'll get to it, but like she has so much shit happen to her. Like I think
Mm,
way more than the other characters. Like her life is in peril way more times. And that's why I'm
totally.
like, that's like foreshadow. Like I felt it was huge foreshadowing. Like she definitely had.
Because I loved that because they had told us, hey, this
Yeah,
means she's going to die within the year. So now every single time anything happens, we're like, is this it?
yeah,
Is this going to
yeah,
take her out? Anyway.
yep, yep. Um, yes. So this relating back to figuring out that Tiffany was the one who put Nick in prison. This was a big subplot too. Is while Nick was in prison, Tiffany had started visiting him, and he at first was like, poop you, I don't want to talk to you. But eventually, they started talking, communicating through books and like relating. They became really good friends, and she ended up leaving Nick a bunch of bearer bonds worth about 5 million, I think it was. But she left him a hard drive full of information on the Hudsons, all of their dirty business. However, the problem was there's a lot of holes missing in all of the different info, and like they needed more. But it was a good starting point. It was a starting point to taking down the Hudsons.
And we'll talk more about the Hudsons, who they are, and why everyone wants to take them down later.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, I don't. This isn't really a point. It kind of is a point. I don't really know how to label this, but a big thing throughout is like paranormal things do keep happening. Like it's not just is it paranormal? Like it really is.
And
And
Nancy's
Tiffany,
not the only person being haunted, interacting with these paranormal things. Because if it was just Nancy, then it could be like, okay, she's
right?
dealing with
Yeah,
trauma and it's all in her head. But everyone else goes through these and is introduced to these events, and so it's clearly not just a Nancy thing.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Tiffany's ghost keeps lashing out at Bess and George. Lucia, I think, is the big one who's haunting. I don't know if I want to call it haunting. I don't feel like they're necessarily haunting them. They're definitely like, hey, yo, I'm here.
Well, Lucy definitely haunts a variety of other people and harms them.
Oh, that's definitely for sure. Lucy definitely haunts other people, but I feel like haunting has a negative connotation. So I don't know if I'd say she was haunting Nancy, even though I guess technically semantics wise she was. But
She
yes,
was hanging around Nancy and trying to guide her towards the truth. And when she would
true.
reveal herself to other people, like to Ryan Hudson, then she was either trying to harm him or scare him or, you know, otherwise interact with him. So that was more on the
Right.
haunting, spooky side.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. But I wanted to mention it because it did lead to, I think, kind of a key thing and what is a foundation block for all subsequent seasons too is it one the paranormal is real and it brings in George's mom, and as her mom comes in and they start dealing with ghosts, they start doing trickle effects. Like as they interact more with paranormal, it causes more things to happen down the line, and then there's consequences from the different things they do. So yes, um
Yeah, they have a
this
seance, and basically it allows a whole bunch of other spirits to start affecting things and somewhat weakens the barrier between the spirit world in some ways. And so lots more things start happening after that seance. And they only do the seance because Lucy kind of wanders off from Nancy. And so Nancy's trying to get a hold of Tiffany. I don't know. She's trying to get a hold, I think she's trying to get a hold of Lucy because
Well,
Lucy's
which
gone
seance are we
MIA.
talking about?
The first
Because
one.
there's a lot of different ones that happen.
The very first one, they did it because Lucy had stopped talking to Nancy, and Nancy was like, I need to get her back.
So are we talking about with the medium, or we're not talking about with the medium?
No, not the medium. The seance they did in the claw.
With the coins? Is this before or after the coins?
If you guys haven't figured this out, this show is very complicated.
You're probably right. It probably was that seance. Regardless, once they start dabbling, they keep dabbling, and then the things they're doing cause subsequent and future issues. Because they open the door, you know? They let it through, and now it keeps coming through.
George gets possessed by Tiffany, and then this is what happens. Yeah, George gets possessed by Tiffany, who is so mad that George was the other woman. And then they basically banish Tiffany out of George's body. And this is where they first involve the mom. And then they get some evidence of the Hudsons doing bad things and use that to try to get Lucy back. Anyway.
Yeah. So then we have, this is also a kind of key story point. It's kind of about I don't know. It's just important. It's important. Ryan's mother, Celia Hudson, was having an affair with Sebastian Marvin, and kind of a sub thing of that is Sebastian did later on die on a ship that was sank, which had a bunch of key artifacts of the Hudsons and like had a bunch of their it was money, it was liquid affairs, it had a bunch of artifacts on it.
And so the sinking of that ship led to a lot of people dying. And so there was a lot of spirit energy basically attached to the things that were supposed to be on that ship. Here's where I have an issue with that, because I don't know how the spirits weren't near the artifacts. The artifacts they weren't on the ship. So why are the spirits attached to the artifacts?
Because it was prior. A lot of the artifacts were old ancient things that were bad, like the coins. The coins are from the ship. The coins had essentially spirit stuff trapped in them. So it's not because
but the coins weren't on the ship.
Yes, they were. They were part of the shipment. They were part of what was on the ship. The ship didn't actually sink with all the artifacts. The Hudsons have all of the stuff that was on the ship.
Right. So when the ship sank, the artifacts weren't on the ship.
I don't think so.
So why are the spirits attached to the artifacts?
Because it's prior to that. Wait, which spirits are we talking about?
On the boat.
We don't deal with any of the ghost spirits. We don't deal with like Sebastian Marvin didn't have a ghost and stuff.
Okay. I think I thought that all the sailors who died, I thought it was their spirits that were attached to the coins, and that's why there was so much spiritual energy.
No, the coins are evil. The coins are pure evil. They attract the evilest of the evil. It's not the sailors. Like the coins were like that prior to anything that happened. They just happened to be one of the precious artifacts that the Hudsons own, and the Hudsons own a lot of precious spiritual artifacts.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Okay, sorry. I was confused. I see what you're saying now. I get it. I guess I could see why you would think that. At least that was my understanding. Was like the sailors weren't evil. Like they died. They were probably some angry spirits. But the way George's mom talks about them and how they work and why they attract stuff is like that's what they were. You know,
Okay.
like that's yeah.
I guess we'll talk about this when we talk about characters. But yeah, the Hudson matriarch and then the Marvin patriarch who have an affair. Um, that's a very key piece of this puzzle because
Yeah.
they're basically mob families or they're very wealthy families in the area who are basically, you know, business associates but also don't like each other and are feuding and it's a whole thing.
Yeah. Yes. I would say we're more like mafia level, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then another key plot point, or more like story point, like the last one is, um, and this is also kind of I include this. This is more of also a foundation block for future things too, not just season one. Is so Bess is a Marvin. She did actually turn out to be a Marvin. She took a DNA test with Owen and Aunt
Oh, and the
Diana.
cute Marvin who keeps flirting with Nancy, much to
Yep,
Ned's chagrin.
yep, yeah. So Aunt Diana is the matriarch of the Marvins now. Like she is the head. She totally brings Bess in. She's like, "Yes, Bess," um, and is all for Bess. However, the key thing of Aunt Diana is scary. Okay, Aunt Diana is scary. She is all nice and happy until you do something that is not what she thinks you should be doing, or she upset. And if she gets angry or upset at something, like you will be punished. You will be cold shouldered. You things will happen.
You will die a
So
social death.
you really will. Well, and a monetary death too, though, because she controls all the money.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we also have Lisbeth, who is Bess's love interest, and she's important because she is an undercover cop, and she is there to bust Everett. So she is working as a driver for the Hudsons, and I feel like she was definitely high up there for kind of a key suspect of like
Mm-hmm.
what went on with everything. So that's an important thing to remember when we're talking about stuff. Um, so kind of I think the juice of the plot and what we'll be referring back to when we go over the characters and stuff is so Ryan had a secret relationship with Lucy. They were lovers back in the day in high school, and he took her to the Velvet Mask, which is a it's a underground party for the super wealthy, very hush hush Illuminati kind of thing. And if I remember right, when he had brought her to the Velvet Mask, she like was I think upset or something. She ran off and unintentionally sees the affair going on between Celia and Sebastian, which is why I made note of it earlier. And um Celia knows she found out, right? Like sure was there.
Yeah, we
Yes.
see a vision of Celia like grabbing
Oh, that's
Lucy's
right.
arm and
Yeah.
just being like, "You are never gonna speak about this."
Yeah.
So threatening
Yes.
her basically.
Yes. And then a subsequent part of that is that Ryan's parents, obviously didn't approve of Lucy. They wanted him
Well, they
to
didn't
get
approve of Lucy because they didn't want her to tell Ryan or anyone about the affair.
Everett didn't know. That's why Celia didn't like her.
Yeah.
But Everett didn't like her because obviously, why would Ryan be marrying that? He's a high socialite. He should be marrying a high socialite.
I think Celia was pulling a lot of those strings and was just in his ear, just being like, "No, that girl is
I mean,
bad
she
news."
definitely
Blah
could
blah
have
blah.
been, but however it was, and however it ran the business, he definitely wouldn't have approved of her anyways. Like he definitely,
Yeah.
I think, would have been pushing Ryan to marry who he thought he should be married. Because Celia and Everett, I don't think originally loved each other when they were married.
Mm-mm.
Like they were not quite
Or
a
a
planned
business
marriage.
relationship.
Yeah. Yes. So they didn't approve. They wanted Lucy gone. Um, but Ryan loved her. Like Ryan genuinely loved her, not just like the high school fling kind of thing, which is actually really touching.
I know,
I
I
think
was
that gave
really
his character a lot
sad.
of depth. Yeah. Yes.
I have to say, I wasn't shocked. I kind of saw that coming.
Him actually loving her.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, I agree. I agree. I just think though that like if they hadn't have done that, I don't know. I think it made his character strong. He had more
Mm-hmm.
depth. You saw more compassion and like actual genuine emotion out of him. Like I thought that was an important thing.
Definitely.
Um and then kind of the next big thing, and this is kind of what will get us from season 1 to season 2, is the Aglaika. They seek out the Aglaika to help clear Carson's name because Carson by the end is the one where the cops are like, you're the one who killed Lucy because they found Nancy's notebook and all of
Nancy
her
was very
evidence and
suspicious of her
conclusions.
dad because of the digging up of the dress and the hiding this thing, and because he worked for the Hudsons. And she was just like, well, the Hudsons um, wanted Lucy gone, and so she was, for part of the season, was convinced that it was him and that he
Yeah.
killed her. And then she had like finally realized, no, that doesn't make sense. And they'd finally made up and finally were like starting to heal together after her mom's death. And then Karen and the cops show up and they're like, yeah, we read Nancy's notebook, and so we're convinced. So we're going to put you in prison.
Yeah. Yeah. So they reach out to the Aglaika. They ask for Lucy Sable's bones. And through getting the bones, they discover that Lucy was pregnant. Yes.
Yes, because Lucy had fallen off, or she had gone off the cliff, right? And she had fallen into the sea, and then they had never been able to find her bones, so they never could have figured out what actually happened to her. And so that's why her death was never, quote unquote, solved, because her bones were somewhere lost at sea. So Nancy and the gang call down a sea ghost to go and bring the bones up.
Yep. Yes. Um. Yeah. So they discover Lucy's pregnant, and then for whatever reason, I don't remember why, they're like testing the blood.
There was a
Oh,
hair. There was a hair
the
in the
hair.
crown, um,
Yeah.
in Lucy's sea queen crown, and
Mhm.
they were testing the hair to find out who it was, because it wasn't Lucy's. And the forensics guy was saying, yeah, I mean, this was with her crown when she died. So
Right. It was
the
Kate's.
person whose hair it was probably the last person to see her alive, and the hair ended up being Kate's.
Yeah, it was Nancy's
And Nancy
mom's.
submitted her own hair to test against Kate's to get the DNA match because they didn't have Kate's hair. So Nancy was like, all right, check my hair, see if it was my mom who was with Lucy when Lucy died. Because all of a sudden Nancy started going, wait, my mom must be involved in this. And they test the hair, and dun 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 dun.
Oh, yeah. So what it all leads up to is Nancy was Lucy's child. So Lucy was pregnant with Nancy. It connects to, so Nancy had also found Lucy's journal eventually, and in the journal, that's where she really learns about the love affair between Ryan and Lucy, and like it was really cute. It was really wholesome.
Mm-hmm.
But like Lucy was getting hardcore bullied and just
Because the
I wanted to
Hudsons were
give that,
spreading rumors about her.
yeah, that she was a hoo hoo, and it was terrible. So originally Lucy had gone to the cliffs to kill herself. Like that's why she was up there.
And Kate
And
Drew was Lucy's high school guidance
counselor.
counselor, and so they had a really strong relationship. And Lucy was telling Kate a lot of things about, her life and what was going on with her. And so they had built up a really strong connection.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think no, they just happened to see Lucy. She didn't
Lucy
call, right?
called.
Oh, she did call.
Yeah,
Yes, she
they were
did. She
doing like a
called.
picnic on the cliffs anyway because it was a big festival night.
Right.
So they were doing a
Yes.
picnic. Lucy called to be like, "Hi, I'm on the cliffs," and Kate and Carson run to her. Lucy gives birth at the cliffs, hands the baby to Carson and Kate, and then they turn
Yeah.
around and she has thrown herself off.
Well, before that though, she's like, make sure the Hudsons don't find her. Like, keep her away from the Hudsons. And then yes, right as they turn away, she throws herself off. So, dun dun dun. Technically, Lucy did kill herself. However,
The
there was a
town
whole
killed
lot
her.
of honestly, yeah, there was so much stuff that it's just huge shit show. And
Mm-hmm.
so Tiffany has started learning all this stuff about Lucy and the things that happened and what they did to Lucy and stuff. And she started learning things about the Hudson, and she'd been gathering all of that information. And like
But I
Lauren
think
had said
she was
earlier,
thinking that the Hudsons
oh, everyone
killed
definitely
Lucy.
thought Celia killed Lucy
Yeah.
because she was like, we gotta take care of the problem, and we've seen how Celia takes care of problems. So yes, that was I think definitely what Tiffany was thinking, and Lucy had started, like you were saying, haunting. Yes,
Tiffany.
Lucy had started haunting Tiffany. Yeah, and so
To try to lead her to the correct answer, which
yes,
I don't understand. Lucy wanted this to stay a secret. So why is she trying to solve? Oh, she was trying to bring down the Hudsons because she thought Ryan had betrayed her. Got it. On board.
yes, Tiffany was just in general trying to take down the Hudsons. I think that's how it started off. She was like, "Poop this poop. We like they need to go down." And then through all of that, she ended up upon Lucy, and I feel like something that is said is like when you think about the dead, or like thinking about them, giving them attention strengthens them,
Mm.
right? So maybe her starting to dig and thinking about Lucy and all of that kind of woke up Lucy's spirit. Lucy was like, hey, yo, what's going on? And that was kind of how that went.
Are you
Yes.
guys confused right now? Are you thinking to yourself, okay, so Lucy killed herself, so nobody murdered Lucy. So why is Tiffany dead? We would love to tell you. God.
It's so it's this
So
is so sad though too. So right, because they didn't, like you're saying, they didn't find the bones of Lucy. All right, I think it was ruled a suicide. There was no foul play, which I mean, the ruling wasn't wrong. It was wrong, but it wasn't wrong. So it was a suicide. But her brother
who
was
was
like,
Ned's
"Where's
boss?
yeah?" Who's Ned's boss? Was like, "Where's the justice?" It was obviously Ryan. Like I know it was Ryan
Or
Hudson.
it's
He
Ryan's
needs to go.
fault. His family was,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and um Lucy's best friend in high school was Karen, the cop detective who was also Nancy's mom's good friend. She was also like, "Where's the justice for Lucy?" So she swapped evidence. She got the poison from a case about a killer who'd been killing different people with poison. Karen got the poison and gave it to Lucy's brother, and he was gonna use it to kill Ryan. So he had put it in the salad dressing for Ryan. However, when George had brought it out to Ryan, he was like, I don't want it. And then she set it on the counter, and Ace, thinking that was supposed to be
So it was
for
an
Tiffany,
accident.
changed the plate it was on and like fixed it up, I think, and then gave it to Nancy. Nancy brings it out to Tiffany. And yeah, Tiffany. Yeah, it was all an accident. However, Had they not killed her on accident, I do think the Hudsons would at some point have killed her. I will say.
Oh, so if they just toss the salad.
Well, yes. No, I. If he was alive, like if none of that had happened, I still, yeah, or whatever. I do think even if
Mm-hmm.
Ryan had died, I wouldn't have been surprised if she had been killed because Everett was definitely sus of her. Like Everett definitely knew she was digging around and doing stuff. So if there was even a hint at what she was
Mm-hmm.
doing, I definitely think he would have dispatched her. Yeah.
So Tiffany, yes, Tiffany
So
dies. But we're not done yet with the dang season because Nancy and cute Marvin, Owen, get together and they're like, all right, we are going to leave this ding dang town. There's a big.
well, that's characters. I was just trying to get all of the main subplot infos, and I thought we could finally deep dive into characters and
But
talk
it
about
is a
all of
main
that.
plot point because Owen dies. The brother, Lucy's brother, kills Owen to try to get to Nancy.
Oh, the Aglaika didn't kill Owen?
No, did you watch the finale?
Oh, of course I watched it. You do realize how much I've watched, right? You realize how much more information I have than you, okay? I have to be careful.
So episode
Yes.
16 ends with them being like, "Well, we solved it. We know how Lucy died. We know how Tiffany died." Great. You think they're done.
Right.
They've got 2 episodes left. That wasn't the finale. So then they're setting up season 2. So basically, the Aglacia?
Aglaika.
Aglaika,
It's Aglaika.
this
I think it should be Aglacia, but they
the
call it
sea
Aglaika.
creature, they didn't fully pay the fine for her giving them Lucy's bones. So now she's out to kill the group who summoned her. So Owen was part of that. He dies, and they're trying to figure out, oh my gosh, the Aglaika killed him. But then they find out, no, it was actually a murder. And so Lucy's brother had killed him and trying to get him to give up Nancy's location so he could go kill her. Anyway, and then it ends with a little tussle on the roof where Nancy ends up saving his life and telling him that she's his niece. And anyway, it's a whole thing. And then they find out that the Aglaika basically was coming to all of them, and their lives are just going to get more and more of a struggle every day. So they have to try to get rid of her, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
So that's kind of the end. Nancy was supposed to move
yeah.
out, but her kind of ticket out of there was murdered. We finally get Lucy's brother in jail. And the Aglaika is still out there wreaking havoc.
Yes.
And that's the end of season 1.
Season 1 in a nutshell, pretty much.
The longest nutshell you've ever had.